Hi, my name is Suzi Jamil and this is Uncommon.
This podcast is brought to you by Neuralle Media. Are you an entrepreneur or marketer who needs help making podcasts, video or animation? Perhaps you don't have time to manage a freelancer or the budget to deal with an agency. Well, Neuralle Media can help you with simple and affordable content creation, saving you time and money by taking away the pain of producing that content. To learn more, head to neuralle.com/media. That's neuralle.com/media. Play around with our pricing or request a callback directly. Listeners to the show receive a special discount by using the promo code UNCOMMON. Welcome to another episode of Uncommon. My name's Jordan Michaelides and I'm your host. In this episode, I have for you Suzi Jamil. Suzi is the owner and director of Think Inc., the producer of Islam and the Future of Tolerance, and a self-confessed sneakerhead. Having toured the likes of Sam Harris, Majid Nawaz, Steve Wozniak, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Chelsea Manning, and many more, it's clear that her mission in life is to remind the world that smart thinking is actually cool. And I think, in my opinion, her work has never been more important, showing both the left and right of politics that they can get along through proper long-form discourse. In this episode, we covered a lot, including being a sneakerhead, the Mediterranean diet, Jonathan Haidt on social media, life-changing Think Inc. events, discourse and free speech, as well as Islam and the Future of Tolerance, the movie. If you liked the episode, do leave us a rating on your podcast app. And a big shout out to Ministry of Ruby 1 for her review of Sam Wood's episode. I really loved that review, and I really like seeing what you guys have in the way of feedback. So if you got the time, leave us a review, share with your friends, take a screenshot and post on your Instagram story tagging us at uncommon_podcast. To watch the episode in full, just search Uncommon Podcast on YouTube and don't forget to like and subscribe. Show notes and all previous guests are at neuralle.com/podcasts. With that being said, thanks for listening, our regulars for coming back, our newbies for giving us a shot. I hope you'll enjoy this conversation with Suzi Jamil. All right, Suzi, looks like we're live.
Are we?
Yeah, we are. How's your day been?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Busy.
Very busy?
Very busy.
Yeah, I know. We were chatting in the kitchen earlier. Just going to fix these cords up. And you have a crazy schedule with all this stuff going on. I want to get into that, but I had to ask, are you still a bit of a sneakerhead?
Look, I'm trying to be better.
Okay.
I was a collector for many years. I haven't bought sneakers in a few months.
Okay.
Which is a good thing. I'm trying to be more responsible with my money as I age, you know. But I've got quite a big sneaker collection. I'm trying to actually sell some of them at the moment. I've got maybe 8 online for sale.
Jeez. How many do you have in total?
It's probably sitting at about 70.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, mainly Jordans, a lot of Nike. But hey, like, you know, I worked in a sneaker shop for many years.
Yeah.
I love hip hop, and it's kind of all a part of street culture.
When did you find street culture? Like, what was the thing? Like, how did this come to you? I always wonder how it comes to someone. Is it a song? Is it listening to Ja Rule back in the day?
Yeah. No, but, you know, I think that hip-hop culture and street culture has many elements that kind of resonate with me. I love the idea of rhythm and rhyming. I love the idea of poetry. I'm not a poet myself, but I really respect it. I love the art form. And so, you know, it's always kind of something that has been with me, even though I strayed away. I went into, you know, trance, I went into metal, but always went back to R&B, hip hop, and everything that's around it, you know, jazz, soul, everything that surrounds that. And it kind of brings something out of me. I don't know. It's calming. It can change my mood. I think that's very special. And culturally, the come up, the history, I find fascinating. And so I've studied a little bit of it, and I think it's really, really interesting. And I think that all relates. You know, you want to be part of the culture. You want to be in it.
Yeah.
And so you do what you can. You dress in certain ways. You know, you dress like street. That includes wearing sneakers.
Oh, man. It just reminds me, like, when I was... So, like a good Greek boy, I went through my different stages of, like, you know, things that you like. And I remember when I was, like, 13, 14... I cannot. I've completely blanked on the name of the brand, but that was the era when everyone loved Eminem and Snoop Dogg. So they were the top two.
I still love Eminem and Snoop Dogg.
Exactly, but like this is the pinnacle of Eminem and Snoop Dogg, right? What was the brand of clothes that sort of like the real glossy? It definitely wasn't like Adidas tracksuits, but was it Champion?
It could have been Champion.
It could have been Champion.
Could have been Fila.
It was definitely Champion.
Okay.
Oh my god! And so
were you rocking that?
I was rocking that, hanging at Southland. Southland was the shopping centre in the southeastern suburbs. And then I sort of got into that. Was the initial gateway drug to, like teenage discos. So you go for like R&B hip hop nights
at school.
I don't know. They weren't school, events, but they were like, close by school, and they would like advertise it at the school and stuff like that. And then you sort of get your like trance techno phase.
Yes.
And then house music.
Yes.
And then electronic became the thing.
Are you into electronic music?
I think I just like most forms of music.
So you like pop music? Do you put on the radio and listen to that?
Probably not. Like if I was to highlight a particular type of music that I like, it's stuff like cinematic orchestra, where it's sort of like electronic, sort of classical.
So who's your favourite composer then?
No composers.
Okay.
Just the style of music. Like cinematic orchestra is the group that I've always loved, and I think anything around that, and like it's a mishmash. Like Old Town Road by Little Nas is like a brilliant song because it combines country and hip hop / R&B together.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever. Pop's a weird one at the moment though, because it's all like dance hall.
It is a little bit of dancehall at the moment.
It's gone through that stage.
And hip hop now is, leaning on pop too.
Yeah.
Which I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, part of me is like, no, that's exclusive, that's underground, that's for us. And part of me is like, oh, great, it's coming to the culture and everyone can enjoy it. So I think it's good overall that hip hop comes into the mainstream.
Yeah.
Everyone's kind of rocking those super chunky Fila sneakers. And
what was your like go-to? Because I remember I saw an interview with you. Like it must have been like 6 years old.
The only other thing you'll find online where I'm being interviewed.
Yeah, and it's about sneakers, right?
It's about sneakers.
It's
and I'm wearing
brilliant.
a big gold chain.
Yeah, and a cap, and you're probably wearing Adidas or Fila or something like that.
Probably Jordans.
Yeah, something. It looks like you're wearing like some dope trackies. Some outfit like that, and I just thought like, oh my god, like compare Suzi today looking very sartorial.
No, that's Suzi all the time. That's the real. I dressed up for you, Jordan.
That's the real Suzi. So at home, Suzi is all about trackies, chilling out.
Yeah, well, if I'm going to the office, I'm just wearing jeans, a pair of Jordans, and like a Supreme hoodie. Like that's a regular day for me.
Yeah.
And that's what I expect my team to, unless I'm going to a meeting.
Yeah.
Or I'm being client facing, or coming to meet you. Then I'll dress myself up, or if I'm at a show. But in general, I'm just rocking kicks.
Now, we were talking before about history, and we were chatting, interestingly, over Instagram. So your parents, I feel like it was your father, so your father's Turkish Cypriot,
That's right. Yes, he's from Northern Cyprus.
What area of Northern Cyprus is he from?
Oh, I don't know.
No, you told me that's right.
Yes.
You told me the name, but it's the Turkish name. It's not what it used to be called, which was Karenya.
Yes,
So-
you're pushing me if you want me to speak any sort of Turkish or know exactly where. He left when he was 11.
Yeah. Can you remember the name at all?
No, but I can look it up for you.
Okay.
In our Insta history.
Don't worry. I just remember thinking like, wow, like
It's the city of palms, he tells me.
Yeah.
But I don't know how to say that in Turkish.
Yeah, I can't remember the name. It's completely different to Karenya, which is the Greek name, but they were literally from the same era, so they probably would have grown up around each other. Or
your parents,
my
and
grandfather,
your grandfather, and my dad.
Yeah, so he would have been a little bit older. But what year did your parents come out here?
Oh, he was 11, and now he's I think 61 now.
Okay, so at least 50 years ago. It's a long time ago. It's about the same for my grandpa. He passed a while ago, though.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but I mean, it's interesting learning about the history and all that sort of stuff.
Absolutely. And you're going there, aren't you?
We're going to go for a honeymoon. like part of the honeymoon will be there.
That's exciting. Actually, I've just been speaking to my parents and I said to them I'd like to take them this year.
No shit.
Yeah. So I want to do, your mum's from Lebanon.
Okay.
I want to take them to Lebanon.
Yeah.
Then to Cyprus. And then maybe we'll go to Turkey, spend some time in Istanbul.
Amazing.
On my bucket list is sitting on like a rooftop bar in Istanbul, smoking argile, eating some baklava.
The call to prayer is in the background. I can tell you now, it's one of, look, when you have that background, so obviously your background is basically, for people who are unaware, if you grew up around the area, it's basically the same. Everyone looks the same. You may be Greek, but you basically look like a Turk. There's all this arguing. It's like, the Turks and Greeks think they're different, but they're really not. You go there and it's stunning. Like walking around Istanbul, there's people that look like my grandpa, my dad. It's a very, when you've grown up around that sort of identity, there's something about it. I don't know what it was, but for me, just like having that call to prayer sitting on a rooftop, the tea.
Yes.
I could have cried. It was that good. That's how good it was.
Yeah, and I appreciate that you didn't come at me when you found out that my dad was Turkish, because a lot of Greeks don't like that.
I had a very good friend called Menon growing up. He was Turkish, and he always used to rib me and give me shit about Cyprus, but at the end of the day, it doesn't mean a fucking thing. My dad used to always say to me, he's like, don't trust Turks, don't trust Turks.
Your dad did.
But now as if he cares. Who cares? Like, it doesn't mean anything.
Mean anything.
It doesn't. And the funniest thing now is they're looking at like reunifying Cyprus. Yeah.
Well, I hope they do.
It's nearly there.
I hope they do.
How did your parents find each other?
They were selling World Book Encyclopedia door to door.
Okay.
My mom was selling it with my dad's brother.
Okay.
And my dad courted my mom for 10 years until she agreed to be his wife.
In Australia?
Yes, in Australia.
Okay.
Yeah. So dad's 3 years younger than mum is.
Okay.
And so you can imagine that whole courting process. So dad's family is Muslim and mum's family is Christian.
Oh, really? Is he Sunni?
Oh, I don't dabble in that. I don't ask and I don't tell. Because I live my life in a different way, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't
course.
follow the religion. And I get some criticism about that.
You would, yeah.
Especially in what I do, in the public sphere, which is difficult, I guess. But I think for my parents, it was interesting because it wasn't easy for them.
Yeah.
Two different religious backgrounds coming together and marrying.
It was very hard. I mean, was that not what happened? Like, that was part of the angst during the civil war in Lebanon. It's, Muslims versus Christians.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a lot of drama all around the world in that regard, and it still occurs today.
Yeah.
So, really interesting that they did that, and I think that kind of set the tone for me because it means I'm okay to bring home any man I want.
Woo!
No, but, it means that they're very progressive and understanding and open-minded.
Yeah.
I'm an only child, so, of course, they protect me and want the best for me.
Oh, yes.
But
they want only the best for their girl.
They're amazing individuals, actually. My mom is incredibly generous and hardworking, and my dad is curious, So I get a lot from them, and I hope that I can take the good bits of each of their personalities.
Yeah. Where's your mum from in
Beirut.
Lebanon? In Beirut. Okay, yeah. Because I remember, my dad was there in like the 70s.
What was he doing there?
Oh, not in, sorry. They were going to go to Lebanon. So as the story goes, so my Greek grandfather wanted to buy some printing equipment and the cheapest and best quality or near best quality equipment is buying secondhand Heidelberg machines from Russia back in the 70s.
Okay.
So to get to Russia, you had to fly Japan and then to Moscow. Then they went to, and then after that was done, they went to Cyprus to visit family, and they wanted to go to Israel and a few other places around there. But that was, I think, when the civil war broke out.
In Lebanon.
Yeah, and so they went up to, he told me they used to be able to go up to this mountains, the Troodos Mountains, and you could hear the guns of Beirut.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's how close it is, which is pretty gnarly when you think about it. And but it was a different, it's a fascinating place. Like I remember he he had some issues with like immigration when he went there. Even though he's a teenager, he had issues with them. Even though he's an Australian citizen,
Right.
Going to Cyprus, just things were different back then. You couldn't. It would never happen now.
This is your
ever.
father.
My father.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think one of the reasons that we haven't been back.
I've never been.
My parents have not been since they came, 11
Yeah.
and 14. And one of the reasons I think that we haven't been is because my dad was afraid of
Paranoia.
being taken into the army.
Yeah. Absolute paranoia.
And now I'm like, Dad, you're over 60 now. They're not going to take. He's like, they might. We better know some people in high places.
They are not going to do shit. They're not going to do shit.
I said, we'll just bribe them.
Yeah. But back then, that's what it was like. It was all about bribes.
Well, yeah.
That's what it was like.
So
If you think about your parents and the principles that they've shown you throughout your life, whether it's saying that's direct or indirect, is there something in particular that you use every day to this day from them?
Oh, I think I use lessons they have taught me every single day. I think that the kind of the hustler mentality of hard work is something that I it's just my lifestyle.
Yeah.
I live like my mum still works incredibly. She works almost like she works 6 days a week essentially.
Wow.
While managing us, her sister. She looks after everybody and she takes on everyone's burdens. So that hustler mentality, that hard work, I try and live by that. The generosity, I think, is an important element. I think in our cultures, it's, you don't visit someone's house empty-handed. And if I knew this was your house, I would have brought you something, little things like that.
Yeah.
I think is very important. I think that's kind of that type of value. I think I'd like to continue on and bring into today's society because you don't really see that anymore. That type of generosity, like openness. If someone likes something, or here you go.
Yeah.
And curiosity. I think like from my dad always, he used to drive me to school every day.
Okay.
And he used to, on the way to school, say, "Did you know that the universe is forever expanding?" And I used to be like, "Yeah, Dad." And now I'm like to my friends, "Did you know that the universe is forever expanding?" And so, that curiosity, I use that every day.
That's so fascinating. What did your dad end up doing? Like, is he one of those guys that sort of like Richard Feynman's dad, where he was a salesman, but he really wanted to be like a scientist or something like that?
So my dad started as a magician.
Oh, no shit. Are you serious?
Yes. My dad was a magician.
Okay.
And then he became a photographer.
Okay.
And then he now is a graphic designer.
Wow.
So he started in graphic design, not knowing anything about graphic design. And only a few years back, he went and studied graphic design and finally got the accreditation. So that takes courage, to step into an industry without really knowing anything about it, a little bit of creativity. And then to be a mature age student, go to TAFE and get that accreditation. I'm incredibly proud of him for doing that.
What does he still do any magic tricks or anything like that?
He used to pull coins out of my ears.
Did he?
But no more. I found his magic box one time and
Really?
I was telling all my friends how to do the tricks, and I remember getting in trouble because I was told, "You don't tell. The magician never tells how to do the trick, Susie."
Have you, is he always, I wonder if he's always like kept on top of famous magicians like the David Blaines of the world and whatnot?
I think he's interested, but the interest kind of fizzled out a little bit. But
yeah.
He used to be very enthusiastic about a multitude of different things that, and he still is. I mean, my dad has an Instagram account that does better than my Instagram account. He's an incredible cook. And he takes photos of foods and posts them up on Instagram.
No shit.
Yes.
What's he normally? You can tell me afterwards. I've got to make a note to find this Instagram account.
Oh, a photographer, great cook. You've got a great Instagram.
Yeah, it's a perfect skill. What does he normally cook?
Oh, a range of things. So a lot of traditional foods, but he likes to dabble in every type of culture's food. Like he'll cook Thai food, he'll cook Indian food, everything.
Yeah.
And it's really delicious.
What's the dish that you love the most that from either of your parents that they make?
Well, that's real tricky. Mum is also a great cook, and she cooks a lot of traditional Lebanese food.
Uh-huh.
So she'll make, lentil dishes.
Yeah.
Kibbeh?
Does she do kibbeh?
Yeah, she does, but I don't eat meat anymore.
Ah, yeah.
I have eaten kibbeh. I know what it tastes like. It's delicious.
Yeah.
I bet it's been about 5 years for me. I've not eaten it. So that's tricky for them, to accept that their daughter no longer eats meat, especially because there's always all this beautiful food at my house. But There's a lot of delicious vegetarian foods in our cultures. In our cultures, like Greek, Turkish, Lebanese.
If you're going to be veggie, that's sort of the area to do it.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
Delicious.
Do you find it funny that around that part of the world, everyone claims a certain dish as theirs? Like dolmadis, like as an example.
Yeah, we call it dolmavi, yeah.
Yeah. You know, the vine leaves,
yeah.
So, like, I remember my mate Menon used to always say to me, he's like, you know they're Turkish, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, but why are they called dolmadis? It's like, bro, there's a different name in Turkish.
Didn't he say they're dolma, not dolmades?
And like, oh, man. And what was the other one that we used to always debate? Keftedes in Greek, but kefte, I think, is...
Kafta?
Maybe.
Oh, yeah. The meat,
balls,
yes.
yeah. And you normally have it with yogurt and sumac or... Depends where you're from. Paprika, sumac, something like that.
Delicious.
Yeah.
I think we've got the best food in the world.
Yeah. The Mediterranean diet is the best diet.
Mediterranean diet is the best diet. Yeah. So, you know, that Mediterranean, Middle Eastern mix is, you know...
I've been eating more and more fish and less red meat and stuff like that.
I'm glad to hear that.
And a lot more veggies. Like I've been having, you know, like one veggie meal a day, and I always feel a lot better.
Well, that's good. I think that you're doing your part.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you for doing that. I think that's great. Everyone should do their part. It doesn't mean we all have to be doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And I never push what I do on other people. For me, being a vegetarian it's not difficult.
Yeah.
But for me, other things are difficult. Things that you might find easy. Like, for example, fast fashion. That's a really hard one for me.
Yeah.
I don't condone fast fashion. I think it's very bad. There's many people that are dying for us buying these clothes. Many people working in conditions that we shouldn't be standing for.
Exactly.
But it's something that I'm finding difficult to fall out of. But eating meat wasn't hard for me. So I chose my battle there. And, you know, if I can do that and that can help the environment, help animals, be good for the world in general, I will do that.
Yeah.
And that's what I do.
Yeah, I think having balance is the key thing. Like I unfortunately for me, I've got this issue where I've got fructose intolerance. So if I was to eat like 100% veggies, my diet would be so like unhealthily limited.
Then you shouldn't do it.
Like
in my opinion.
Yeah. Like as an example, I cannot have more than like a quarter of a cup of beans. Because beans are really high in fructose. It gives you horrendous stomach pain. It can make you vomit.
Yeah, no.
Just all the bad things.
No.
So
it's not worth it.
Like if I have too much hummus, I'll be feeling it.
Oh.
Don't worry. Oh. It's like the worst thing ever. Like and it's in the best bits as well, like garlic, chickpeas and lentil, like all the yummy things. Like it's even in bread. Like it's a little bit, but not too much. Like apple. It's in fucking...
In apples?
Yeah.
Well, there's not a pill you can take for it? Oh, that's a shame.
No. It's
They'll come up with something.
It's basically, they give it a name. It's called hypersensitivity. It's just like...
Hypersensitivity?
Yeah, like visceral hypersensitivity is the clinical term for it.
Sounds like what we're going through in the culture at the moment, hypersensitivity.
It is. I honestly think it's correlated to that. It's more prevalent in today's culture.
With Gen Z? They're more just hypersensitivity with Gen Z.
Well, yeah, definitely with Gen Z. Mind you, I keep hearing this thing that like Gen Z are more conservative than previous generations. I'm yet to see much data that actually shows that. Like everyone just says it anecdotally. I haven't actually seen.
Well, I think there's a lot of impacts occurring on Gen Z because of social media and a range of other things.
Yes.
So I think the data will come out. The data will show some really interesting facts. I think that there's a few people talking about it at the moment. And I mean, I'm living it with Jonathan Haidt at the moment.
Exactly. If you look at Jonathan Haidt's talks, it's truly one of the most fascinating things ever. I think the original talk he did, it wasn't at Harvard, it might have been at Columbia, was it? And it was about his findings around social media use. To me, it was like mind-blowing.
Yes.
Absolutely mind-blowing. Like the amount of, particularly amongst young girls.
That's right. So we've seen, I mean, I'm not going to speak as if I'm Jonathan, but I mean, the increase in self-harm and suicide is
massive.
It's massive. And we need to do something now.
Yeah.
And that's why it was urgent to get Jonathan out, in a sense, you know. Now we need to step up and make change, because if we don't, the data's showing that we're going to be a really bad situation in the near future. So, and we know that. We've known that for a little while, that suicide rates are way too high. And we're not doing enough to stop it. And social media is not helping. But how great was it yesterday?
The Instagram thing.
That Instagram stopped showing how many likes you get on That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Good step in the right direction. As soon as I saw it, I felt lighter.
Yeah. I agree. It genuinely had an effect on me. And I started to think, like, was there a collective sigh of relief? And there's going to be a massive come down period. Like, people are going to have some massive withdrawals from, like, even now as a habit, I find myself looking at certain posts, and the first thing I look for, I notice, is that's where my eyes go to, where the line is for the amount of likes and who liked it.
And I didn't notice I was doing that until it was gone.
Yeah.
And I think that's shocking.
But they know that, and they've always known that.
And why did they not do something sooner?
Money. That's why.
And why don't Facebook do something about it? Like, I know it's Facebook, Instagram is a part of Facebook. Why don't Facebook do something about the like button?
Yeah.
These things are impacting our society, and we need to step up and make change, and we need to be berating them and telling them that we need to see change. Now, it's just not good enough.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens, though, because I had a meeting today with a client, and they're asking me now, what's going to happen with that? Like, does that mean that now we pay? We're the only ones that can get likes. So now, Instagram and Facebook are offering the availability of likes, but only if you pay for it.
Is that what they've said they're going to do?
I don't know. We don't know. But that's what we're theorising in our head. There's been no release. It's still a test in Australia. Fascinating that we're the little guinea pig, though, in Australia. Now, let's get into your early career. We were chatting about this downstairs. You studied communications at UTS. You went and did a JD at UNSW. I think you came out, you worked as an account executive. It's sort of like a communications firm, like everything from PR to graphic design to...
Well, so I studied comms UTS straight out of school.
Okay.
And then I worked at it was a PR firm.
It was a PR firm?
Yeah, it was an agency.
Yeah.
And no disrespect to them, but I really did not like PR.
Yeah.
And then after a year, I quit and I studied law.
Okay. PR is a very tough game.
Well,
it's very not gossip driven, but it's very like strong interpersonal connections. You got to know the who's who.
Yeah, that element of it I didn't mind so much, but I'm not a cliquey girl or kind of a. Can I swear?
Yeah.
I'm not like a bitchy type. I used to rock up to work with my push bike and my cap on and like my sneakers on, and then I'd have to get changed. And I wasn't in the cliques because I was a little bit of a tomboy and I liked my own thing.
Yeah.
And so I didn't feel part of the team properly. And I was worked really hard, which was fine, but it just wasn't. It wasn't for me. I didn't like that scene. I didn't like it at all. And I didn't feel comfortable selling products I didn't believe in. And I mean, now, for thinking I do all the PR myself, and I love doing the PR. I love speaking to the media. I think that a lot of them are brilliant, and I've formed fantastic relationships. That relationship forming, I love doing.
Yeah.
And I'm okay at it. So that wasn't the bad bit. The bad bit was the culture of PR.
Yeah.
Wasn't my scene.
And that was one thing that came up in the questions that were asked is how do you go from that to thinking? Like, how do you go from that to bringing out Michio Kaku in your first event?
Yeah, so when I came to realise that I didn't like PR, I went off to a leadership retreat to try and kind of find my feet. I'm a huge nerd. I get it. I'm a nerd. I went to leadership retreat and I went there to say to myself, what are you going to do to be really happy? You hate this job. You're unhappy in general. You're going through some things. What are you going to do? And then I realised the path to happiness was doing good for society.
Okay.
Doing good made me happy. And so I thought, well, I think that I'm able to do more than just comms. I'm going to go study law. And I'm sure that after I study law, there'll be something I can do to help. Wherever that might be. I don't know. I didn't know if I was going to be a lawyer, what I would do. But I thought this would be an opportunity to help people that are unable to help themselves. So I took that path. In my first year, there was a hole in the market. I knew how to run events.
Okay.
And, I had a business partner at the time and we ran our first event.
Okay.
We took a risk. We were broke, and we took a loan from someone, and we cash flowed the event out, and we ran the event, and we made enough money to run the next one.
Okay.
We had to give him 50% of our profits. That was hard, but that was okay because it meant that we had enough money to run the next one. So that's how it started. There was a hole in the market.
Yeah.
I was always a huge nerd. I love, reading books, talking ideas. That's a part of me, and then the street culture element's the other half. And I'm trying to balance that all the time. But there was something there. People were interested. We sold out 3 cities.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Who was no one else doing this? No one else was touring a Sam Harris or any of those types.
Well, the only thing that existed was the Festival of Dangerous Ideas. At that point, it was at the Sydney Opera House.
Okay.
There was nothing else. There's no touring model. No one does what Think Inc. does. Still, really, till today, really, in the same form that we do it. But
there was one business that came, and that was in the US, and they bombed so hard.
Yes.
Paying Vern?
Yeah. Travis seemed like a nice enough man. I understand that he did bad to many people. I feel sad about that went on, and many people were very upset with him and what he did, and I understand. And but that was only recent. That was only within the last couple of years that he came up. Yeah. So at that point in time, being intelligent, being a nerd wasn't cool. Now it's cool.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud that it's cool now because I feel like I've kind of participated in making it cool. Because people saw all these big nerds come to Australia, these intellectuals, talk ideas, and they were cool and they were rock stars, and we did that. And that I think is awesome.
Yeah. And who, if you think about the ideas, principles that you were developing before you decided who you wanted to pitch to bring them out, who was sort of, like for me, it was 20 years of age at uni, and I found Tim Ferriss, who then, the thing that I found from him was Richard Feynman. Mm-hmm. And so finding Richard Feynman was probably one of the greatest things to ever happen to me, because that really, what's the word? It sort of invigorated my innate sense for questioning things.
Yes.
Which has helped me do what I do now. But I would not have gone in that direction unless I'd found Richard Feynman, who made it sort of cool to do that.
That's interesting.
So,
I think my comparative would probably be someone like Carl Sagan. Pale Blue Dot.
Yeah.
What a beautiful speech.
Yeah.
That makes me reflect on life. That makes me reflect on many things. So I think that's interesting. And I mean, him, that stemmed from Neil deGrasse Tyson. Neil deGrasse Tyson to me is incredibly inspiring. I love his charisma. I love the way that he speaks and the way that he can encourage people to be interested in science. I respect him a lot. But there's a few people, in the science, there's that realm. And then, of course, there's philosophy and ideas and culture. And there's so many people that I've met that I really respect. What could be better than spending a couple of weeks with your heroes, right? So, that's really where it started. It was, how can I spend time with people that I idolize?
It's literally the question that I asked. It's like, how can I get people in the room that would never, ever be in the room without saying, hey, you want to grab a cup of coffee? Isn't that the fucking worst? Like no one would ever say yes to that. And so now, you build something like an event or a podcast or whatever, and then those doors open.
Of course I'd say yes to coffee with you. What do you mean? Yeah. If you ask them, come have coffee, how could they say no?
No.
They get to talk about themselves. Everyone loves talking about themselves, don't they?
It's a waste of time.
It's
a waste of time.
I've never done anything like this before. I'm usually, quite private, maybe. I started thinking at 22. I refused to put my face on the website until last year.
Really?
Yes. I've been running Think Inc. for 6 years. So I was like, who's going to want to tour with a little ethnic girl from Sydney, Australia? And so last year I kind of, my perspectives would change. People would say to me, Suzi, what are you doing? You've got captive audiences of 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people. Go up there and speak to them.
Yeah.
So now I front end the show with just 3 minutes of me going up and thanking the guest and thanking the audience and thanking my staff, because people should know maybe who's behind it. And I kept it quiet for such a long time. And I think that my mind's slowly changing.
Yeah, I think you need to get behind it way more.
You think so?
I think so. I think it gives people a little bit more buy-in to the event.
I'm not an intellectual, and I don't want to be.
Like, as in, I totally understand. I know what you're thinking.
Right.
So this is an issue we have with the podcast, right? So I was told recently, you need to do more stories. You need to get your face out there more because you've got, you're meeting all these people. You've got things to say. And I'm like, what the fuck do I say? Like, seriously, I'm not an intellectual. I'm not interviewing the people that I normally talk to. And she was like, it doesn't matter. Like, as in, people find what you're doing interesting. If you can put it out there more, you're just making it more relatable. And I think by you doing that, you're going, like, Sam Harris is a bit of an untouchable. But what if Suzi was talking behind the scenes on stories or whatever? Seeing you guys behind stage would make Sam more relatable.
I agree
as part
with
of the
you.
event.
I agree, but I'm not the type that would ever host an event. I don't want to be on stage asking the questions.
No.
It's not for me. I'm not interested in that type of public figure style. I don't want to I wouldn't host like you could. That's not me. I'm like the ice cube tray. I can form the ice. I'll produce the shows. I'll make it happen. But you're right. I don't mind being a public figure, but only for what I know and what I'm an expert in, which is all the behind the scenes stuff, all the production stuff, choosing the guests, whether it's about those, my background, my history, starting up a company, being a female in business, I can talk to those things, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you about, the theory of relativity. I'm not going to talk to you about that. That's not my expertise.
Yeah. Now, going back to the first event.
Yes.
I one of the things I always think about is I reckon it's easier to do the first event than it is the second event because you got to back it up, right? That's the hardest thing. It's something that people don't think about. They're like, oh, the first sale is the hardest sale. I don't know that that's the case because a lot of the time you've got to, the first time you do it, you don't care how much money you make.
Yes.
You just want to do it.
Yes.
But now you've got to do it in a way where you're going to make more money or enough money to support you. So, whether it's building houses, creating events, creating content, whatever it may be, I'm always intrigued as to how the second event's going to turn out. So how did you go from that? You had a bit of money left over. Who was the second event?
James Randi.
It was James Randi. It was. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, and he is...
Now, for people who don't know who James Randi is...
He's a magician.
Yeah. Well, he was a magician,
yeah,
right?
I mean, when do you lose being a magician? He's a magician. He's still a magician. He can still do magic.
Yeah.
He is an incredible magician, and he's a skeptic.
Yeah.
And he was the man that found out Peter Popoff. You know Peter Popoff?
I feel like I've seen the clips of James Randi. They're like they're famous.
Yes. And so he went and found that Peter Popoff, who was an evangelist, who ran an evangelist church.
Oh, yes. So this is the one where they picked up the earpiece.
That's right. And his wife was telling him information about the people in the audience in a very, very nasty way. So it wasn't just that he was fooling the people in the audience. It was that his wife was speaking to him about these people in a really nasty way.
Yeah. So what they used to do is they'd come in and they'd fill out a form about their life, and then they'd have it there. And so she'd be like grabbing the form and like read it out to her.
Exactly. And so it was James Randi that found that out. Isn't that brilliant?
It's amazing. Yeah, like they intercepted the radio frequency.
Unbelievable, really.
And he also used to do the best ones when he goes on like late night television. And so there was one where there was a guy that used to...
Bend spoons.
Bend the spoons.
Uri Geller.
That's it, Uri Geller. Yeah.
He would bend the spoon. I've seen many people do it in real life. It's fantastic. I mean, the fact that he goes out there, disproving these people, I think is so important.
But the best thing is like when that person believes that they've got people tricked and then they get found out by James Randi and they're just standing there like I remember the guy do you remember the guy with the pieces of paper and the book and it was like he was blowing on the book or something and the pages would stick up.
And did Randy find him out?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So Peter Popoff still exists. He's selling, I think, gemstones on like the TV, the shopping channel on TV.
Oh my God. Peter Popoff.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's funny, isn't it?
So the second event you did James Randi.
Yes.
How does the business model work from there? Like is it always based on you pitch the talent?
Yes.
You get them out here for the events. Well, obviously you sell tickets as part of that process. You do your tour. What else? How do you I'm just trying to think about it.
How do I make money?
Yeah, how do you make enough money if you're doing 2 a year to survive the year? Like, I guess the tickets are well priced, but you've got to pay the talent as well. Like, is it things like merch sales? Is there other things going on? Like, how does it all work?
Yes. It's the events game is incredibly high risk.
Yes.
And an incredible amount of work.
Yeah.
So any promoter knows that events are I can't describe how risky this business is. Yeah. You will never run, 10 events in a row and make money off all of them. Yeah. That's not how it works. You need to find the balance between how much it costs for the talent to come out, how much the talent fee is, all the venue expenses, everything else we have to cater for. Then you have to ensure that they're going to sell enough tickets at the correct ticket price that is price sensitive to your audience, sell enough tickets to cover those expenses, and any more that you make is what you can keep. And then that usually gets reinvested into the business to run the next one.
Jesus.
And so there are many barriers for this. For example, Ticketek and Ticketmaster, which are two of the biggest ticketing platforms here and are linked to multiple venues. They will hold your money. So my business is a small business. I'm a small scale promoter. Perception is reality. We like to appear very large, but ultimately we run a very tight ship. But with Ticketek and Ticketmaster, they hold your money until the end of the show. So to cash flow an event out, if you're not a millionaire with very rich parents, which I'm not, I've never got any money from anyone, it's very, very, very challenging. And so that's a constant battle, is being able to cash flow the event out to make sure that it runs, that everyone gets paid, and then at the end of the day, weighing up if you've made money or not and reflecting on that and seeing if you can keep going.
So when you say Ticketek and Ticketmaster are holding money, do you mean when they get paid, they hold that money?
So people buy tickets through Ticketek or Ticketmaster and they hold that money until the end of the event.
Yeah. That's brutal.
It's a huge challenge because it means that not only do they hold the money, they earn interest on the money. They also hold the data. They don't give you all the data. They only give you opt-in data, which is a very small percentage of actual data that they get. And then they use your data to market to other people. So it's something that we really need to stand up against. And I think that, in time, that kind of duopoly will fall.
Yeah.
There are other great ticketing platforms that I think will step up and take the place. And the thing is, though, venues like to work with these organizations because they front end them with cash. Mm-hmm. They'll say, if you work with us, we'll give you this, and there's good benefits. And then for the punter, they have to spend these extraordinary booking fees, up to $10 a ticket.
Jesus. For the venue?
On top of what I am putting out there. So I'm putting a ticket price. I'm setting a ticket price if that's, $60.
Okay.
And then Ticketek or Ticketmaster will put insider fees. They'll put out fees for the patrons. They'll put all these fees on top of that. So if I'm setting a ticket price at 60, it might end up being 80.
Jesus.
So it's tough.
Wow.
Per ticket.
Wow.
That's a interesting industry, that one. But anyway, so there's a lot of challenges in being a promoter. But I don't think that I'm just a promoter. I see myself as an entrepreneur because this industry did not exist before we started it.
Yeah. So basically what you need to do is work out who's the talent that will bring out X amount of people and what will those people pay per ticket. And if if that works out, then you can do it.
Then good for me. If not, then I lose money.
Then you're in the shit.
Yes.
Yeah.
I lose money.
Okay. That is, yeah. So
and sometimes a lot, but
so it's
it's
almost like property flipping, but with short-term 90-day loans or something like that. That's insane. Because in a way they're holding, because of the fact that Ticketmaster, etc., hold your money. Wow. That's such a hard business.
I know. That's why I'm going grey at 28. No, it's hard work, but, I've been able to sustain it for this long, and I feel like I've got a really good grip on what people want to hear, and I'm always open to listening to people's opinions about who they'd like to see next. So if anyone wants to, get in touch and let me know. But no, I mean, that's very interesting. It's very important to have that down pat and have good relationships with the people that you do tour and build up loyalty.
Yeah.
And
who for you personally, who's been, I know you don't want to,
you can't
you're
going to ask me about who my favorite child is.
No, who is, yeah, it's exactly that question. What's been the most life-changing one for you? Like, what
Yes.
was the event that you think really put you guys on the map?
Oh, that put Think Inc. on the map? That was probably Neil deGrasse Tyson first time 2015. So I toured him twice, 2015, 2017. Probably that was the biggest tour at that point that we'd run. And that's, I think, the one that gained the most attention because he's the most mainstream.
Yeah, he had the Cosmos series.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, but I mean, I've done a range of things, you know, that are large scale, some things that were more controversial that kind of put Think Inc. on a map in a different way. So it really depends how you've heard about Think Inc. to what your perspective might be about it.
Yeah. And I mean, you've had some fascinating individuals that I love to listen from. Sam Harris, obviously Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yes.
I think you were the one who brought Sam and Majid out for their
That's right,
book.
2016.
2016,
yeah,
that's right.
That was a fantastic tour, a very important tour that I think made big impact.
Yeah.
And I think the one I did recently that had a very big impact was Cornel West and Douglas Murray. Did you hear about this one?
Yes. Yeah, so I remember when Douglas Murray was out here. Do you know what? I completely missed that whole process, and I was wanting to interview Douglas Murray so badly. But anyway.
Why didn't you reach out?
I don't know.
You forgot?
I forgot. It's just it was at a period of time where we had so many interviews going on. I just knew that, you know, in the past, it's very hard to get some people like that with those sort of profiles. So I don't know. I feel like at that time, when were they out?
August
of last year.
August 2018.
Okay. So why do you think that was so impactful?
What we were able to do was display what true even-handed debate looks like on stage. And it set an example and a precedent for people from the left and the right of politics of how real conversation should be had. So Dr. Cornel West, I toured him in 2015. I think that was probably one of the most impactful tours that for me personally that I've run, because Dr. Cornel West is so full of love, and so I kind of ended that tour feeling so loving, so open, and that was very special. So knowing him 2015 and then meeting Douglas, and met Douglas a couple of times in the UK and inviting them to come to Australia to speak, I knew could make an impact. And what happened was, you know, Douglas being on the right side of politics and Dr. West being on the left, we were able to attract both sides to the event.
Oh, really?
So it wasn't an event where it was just lefties or just conservatives. It was two sides of politics. So, for example, what happened was in Sydney, actually, we hosted it at the Enmore Theatre, and a boy turned up, maybe a young boy, maybe 19. He turned up with a Make America Great Again hat. And I was told by security as the event was starting that he was shoved outside the venue. And
by who? The security?
No, by people that disagreed with his political perspective.
Okay.
And he took a seat, and during the Q&A, so I said to the security, please watch out for him. I don't want any of my audience to get hurt. And he went up and to ask a question during the Q&A, open Q&A. I think that was very important because people needed to ask questions from both sides to both men. And he asked a question about 18C, and from one side of the audience, someone yells, "Shut the F up." Someone from the other side of the audience starts yelling, "You shut the F up." The audience kind of is all freaking out, chattering, you know, and security's coming in. The men on stage were just like, guys, you've seen us talking. We disagree on politics. We've got so many things that we do agree on, but we disagree fundamentally on politics. We're showing you how to have this conversation, how to have a conversation with someone you disagree with. We have to show respect.
Yeah.
And he got to ask his question. And I think that's important. You know, no matter what side of politics you fall into, you need to be able to have conversations with people that you disagree with in order for us to further society.
Yeah. I completely agree. I think, and to tie into the hat, I remember Lauren was thinking recently about us starting to use a hashtag called Make Conversation Great Again.
Yes.
And,
I think that's, yeah.
I think it's very important. And do you know what? A lefty and a right-leaning guy who would be super fascinating would be, oh God bless his name, who used to host QI.
Stephen Fry.
Stephen Fry.
Oh, love Stephen Fry.
So I would call him centre left, and I would call Jordan Peterson centre right. But they were on the same team for that fucking debate in Canada.
Well, they were debating with
even though they disagree fundamentally on a lot of things.
Yes, it was about free speech.
It was about it was about political correctness. Is political
Michael Dyson.
Yeah, Michael Dyson
and
that
a lady.
Yeah, I've forgotten her name. Whoops. It was a brilliant talk though, because it was like, is political correctness a good or a bad thing?
Yes, I really enjoy those debates. I think they're really interesting.
Really, really good.
They're really good. I didn't want to host a debate like that because I wanted to show how people can have conversation.
Yeah.
Rather than who's right, who's wrong, let's vote and then walk away with our opinion. I wanted it to be more like, and this is what I heard as I was standing at the back of the room and people were exiting. I remember in the Sydney show, they said, I came in really liking Cornel West and I'm walking out, I really like them both. And I was like, they even like the conservative. I think that's beautiful. I think that's great that they could see the humanity in that person from the right.
Yeah.
And the men ended up liking each other, Dr. West and Douglas did. I at the end of that tour, I felt like we'd made a difference. We'd impacted people's perspectives and we made them more open-minded. So that brings me joy.
You've said that a few times where you sort of have this very civicness about you. You want people to you want to do something good for other people.
Right.
I was curious, where do you think that comes from? Like, what do you get out of that? Is it that you like the fact that people can get along? Is it that you like the fact that people could learn, like you did through your dad when he spoke about the universe expanding for billions and billions of years? What do you think it is?
I think there's many things I like about it.
Yeah.
I think that a part of it is that I see that in today's society where we have a culture that maybe doesn't do the best job of communicating with one another on topics that they disagree about. Mm-hmm. So I think that's probably one element of it, and I would like to do my part to change that. I think that what I think is very important in what you dedicate your life to is making change in society, right? Making a difference, doing good things for others. I think that impacts me personally, and I think that it's a selfish thing because I really get a kick out of it. It makes me happy.
Yeah.
And I think that in order to be happy and kind of find happiness, which we're all kind of striving to do, millennials, we're seeking happiness. We don't really know how to find it, upwards rates of depression, anxiety, we're all going through it, right? And so we're constantly seeking this, unknown thing that we're reaching for, and we're reaching for it. And for me, doing something good for someone else or knowing that I'm making impact in the world kind of makes me feel good.
Yeah.
And it, like I said, it's selfish, kind of.
It is.
You're like, yeah, Suzi, you're heaps selfish.
No, well, I get it as well. I love the feeling of doing these interviews and feeling like you have a personal connection to the person and then having other people learn about them and seeing that feedback. I think it's part of being, you said you like I think it's part of the fact that we both enjoy personal relationships. And I think at some point in our lives that we love, or the idea of learning has been instilled in us, probably from two WOG parents.
That's right.
So it sort of combines in that unique way, and I definitely think it's just part of you, but it's a good thing because it strives you to do something that is quite civic in a way.
Yeah. So does this bring you happiness? Do you feel that?
I love it. Absolutely love it.
I like that. I think that's great.
Yeah. It's if I could do this, like I do love the agency work. I find it fascinating working with people on interesting projects. But if I could do this 3 times a week with some of the people that we talk to.
Yes.
Like how good is life? Like seriously,
right.
I get to read, think, exercise and speak to people.
Oh.
Like that's the greatest thing ever.
That's the life.
Yeah. So, yeah, I absolutely love doing it. And it's amazing because all I see is numbers. That's the hardest bit about what I do. For
in the
you,
agency?
Pardon?
In the agency.
In podcasting.
Right.
All you see is download numbers. But when I can imagine when you do the event, you must froth. I could see you just, you probably have sore cheeks from beaming all day long. doing these events and meeting people? And
Yeah, well, usually I'm, because I run the show, so usually I'm stressed to the core and running around and my adrenaline's rushing, and by the time the event's over at 11 o'clock, we're exhausted.
Yeah.
But I love it. It's so much fun, and the thrill. I love the adrenaline rush. I'm a little bit of a junkie for it. I really like it. I think it's great. I love public speaking in school, and I think that was because of the adrenaline. I've jumped out of a plane in New Zealand. I love that adrenaline. I think that's great. I don't do drugs. This is my drug.
Working is my drug.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. I think I've got this certain penchant for, like that dopamine effect you get from communicating with people. It's definitely a thing.
Right?
It's sort of like almost like you're on social media, but better.
Heaps better.
You don't have the sort of grogginess from being stuck on a computer.
Your eyes aren't I agree with you completely.
Yeah.
I agree.
It's like a good type of dopamine.
Yes.
Now, thinking about discourse today, it's very, very interesting. I feel like we're in this era where the public sphere has been digitized with the likes of Facebook and whatnot, and sort of it's as transformative as the Reformation, I'd say. Like, we're in this era where social media has been so impactful so quickly that it is being as impactful as the printing press and the Reformation was in Europe at the time. So, I'm curious, how are you thinking about the state of things like free speech, discourse and whatnot? It's a bit unique here in Australia because we don't really have it. We sort of just, as in we don't have, fundamental principles that guide our constitution like they do in America.
It's not written down.
It's not written,
but we still live by those principles.
Yeah, but it's an assumed thing that is there. But then you have, there was that recent raid on
the ABC.
The ABC and a News Corp journalist.
Yes.
About disclosing information around some sort of piece of intelligence.
Right. So whistleblower policy.
Yeah. I would separate whistleblower to free speech generally.
Yes, me too.
I just know that interviewing a lot of the popular internet comedians here, they bang on about the topic a lot. So I guess I'm curious as to, what do you think about all of that?
Yeah.
Do you think people exaggerate how bad things really are?
In Australia,
the West, whatever it may be.
I think it's an incredibly challenging topic, and I think it's very interesting. So yes, I would agree. Let's separate out whistleblowers from free speech. I've brought Julian Assange, Edward Snowden over video link, and Chelsea Manning. We were able to get her into New Zealand, but
that's right.
The government wouldn't let her into. Okay, I'm going to rephrase that. The government did not approve her visa.
Yeah.
In time for her to come to Australia. So we did it via video link. I wasn't going to cancel the event because for me that would mean that she was unable to speak.
Yeah.
And I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
So we still ran it over video link from New Zealand. So I think that is an interesting area. Personally, look, my perspectives, it's not all that important what my perspectives are about everything that they say and do, those three individuals, but essentially, I think it's important that we hear from people that change and challenge the way that we see the world. And these people have done that. And I think it's important that we listen to what they have to say, even if we disagree with them, and ask them questions. Ask them, why did you do that? Why? Try and understand why. Understand the thinking behind it so that we are better informed and we can move forward off the back of that. And I have a lot of respect in one sense for their courage in what they do in some sense. And I also reflect on it and think, well, the damage could be bad as well. So that is challenging, but I don't think that people should be disallowed to speak in the public square about these topics.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
In regards to free speech in general, I think I have, a similar perspective. If it's a public square, we should be able to have conversations, debates. I believe that people should be let into the country to speak on their ideas. Milo Yiannopoulos, not someone that I've reached out to, not a thinking talent, not someone that I've considered touring before, his visa was disallowed. I personally disagree with that. Although I'm not someone that would tour him. If someone else wanted to tour him, let him speak. What's the problem with having him speak? I understand the perspective was that it was right after what happened in Christchurch, and so we were being sensitive about that, and so we did not allow someone that might bring these ideas. I understand the perspective, but disallowing people to come to Australia to speak based on their ideas, I don't think is a good thing.
Yeah.
So that is what I guess in general what I think about speaking events and free speech in that sense. If people want to protest, let them protest. If there's someone's opinion that you disagree with, you're allowed to say that you disagree with their opinion, and they are allowed to come back at you based on that. You are allowed to give your opinion, and your opinion is allowed to be disagreed with. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. It's when that discourse gets shut down that it's a problem.
I think so.
Yeah. So I guess my main issue at the moment is because we live in this society now where there's certain platforms which are essentially the public sphere, although it's private censorship. It's a bit of a worry to me that although I don't like Alex Jones, I've got some more water here. We can grab that.
Okay.
Although it's Alex Jones, I don't think he should be banned. There's certain things that he said that he could probably have gotten a warning for. There's also the recent thing with Steven Crowder and Carlos Mazza. I don't know. My opinion is that it's a tricky one in the US because the thing is these platforms are given an immunity as part of the Communications Act in America where they act as platforms and therefore they're supposedly not in trouble for what people say on their platform, at least legally. But they're acting like they're publishers by banning certain people. So
what do you mean by platform?
Platform versus publisher. It's a ruling in it's not the FCC. Is it the FCA? The Federal Communications Board. No, maybe it's the FCB in America. So there's a board that regulates the Communications Act in America. And, there's all sorts of high profile cases that have happened over the years. I know in the comedy world, everyone talks about George Carlin and how he swore on live TV or maybe it was live radio. And he was banned from being on TV and radio for 10 years. Now, that's okay in that instance because those channels or whatever are in their rights because they are publishers. There's a thing in the US where there's a certain immunity if you're considered a platform or a carrier. So,
what's an example of a platform?
A good example would be a telecom provider. So if you use a telecom provider for threatening someone, you call someone up and threaten them, that telecom provider cannot be held responsible for your behaviour. You are held responsible for your behaviour. And so this is where the idea of the carrier or the platform, it's like sort of don't shoot the messenger, if that makes sense. So because they are considered platforms in their legal or operational structure, they're designated this special immunity. It's got a certain name. It's a section of the Act. But they behave like publishers, like a New York Times. So they say this person can't be on, but this person can. This is our policy, which goes against the idea of free speech because we have all these sorts of rules that don't fit into that amendment. And so therefore you can't be on the platform. So it's a bit of a weird one right now. We wouldn't have any of these, I don't think we'd have any of these debates about who should or shouldn't be censored if the government in the US just acted on these platforms. If they gave them some sort of warning. I think there's actually a piece of legislation being introduced now where they have to be audited. The big four, which is YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Who's the other one? Facebook, Twitter, maybe Amazon with Twitch, or maybe it was someone else. They have to be audited every year or every 18 months to show that they're upholding the First Amendment and that they therefore can be platforms.
Interesting.
So it's a very topical thing at the moment because there's been people that have been banned.
Yes, exactly. I think that when it comes to social media and people being kind of deplatformed off that, I think that it's so challenging, right? So they banned Milo from Twitter. They banned a bunch of people from Twitter. And there's uproar about people being banned from Twitter and Facebook and their actions. I think it's so challenging because private organizations having such a huge impact.
That's my concern.
on the
and
public.
That's the thing, is that they are the public sphere now.
That's right.
And that's why I own shares in Facebook, because more and more I'm like, so long as I can have some input, I'm like, I believe that everyone who's a citizen of any Western country should have shares in Facebook and Google.
But can you understand how the algorithms work?
Me, no fucking idea.
No, right, neither can I.
No.
And I don't know that they can either. And I think that's challenging.
Yeah.
Because when you're serving people information that is based on this algorithm that we don't understand, and it's curated based on who you think is right or wrong for them to hear, it means that people get trapped in echo chambers.
Yeah.
And that's not what we want. So when we saw that email or whatever it was from Google when they were talking about removing certain people from suggested videos, Ben Shapiro, etc. I know that, just using that as a starting point, if they're really going to be the ones that are dictating what we can and can't see, I, for one, like to listen to people on the left and listen to people on the right so that I can understand my perspective.
Yeah, I do it all the time.
And
I actually really enjoy it.
Me too. And so I don't want anyone stopping me or not suggesting videos from people that I might disagree with just because I'm, centre left.
Yeah.
So don't stop those suggestions for me. I want to see them. And I think that as adults, we should be entitled to see them and not get stuck in only what someone else thinks that we should be seeing based on an algorithm that we don't even understand.
Yeah.
That is so challenging. If you're going to manage it in some sense, don't put an algorithm on it that we can't understand to serve us information in certain ways. Let it be free-flowing. Let us see everything or don't.
Yeah.
I think that they're facing a huge challenge in this regard. And I don't know what the solution is, but I know that we should be looking into it and doing something about it.
Yeah, well, there's definitely going to be something happening in the next year or so. I think it causes too much angst in society, and now politicians... The thing that politicians have become aware of is that these tools can be used to win elections. And the moment they realised that about a year ago is when I think they started to realise something had to be done, because they start thinking, well, what if the other team's in charge of it? So that at least gives me hope that there is going to be stuff done about this. I just don't know what.
Yes.
I guess that's what everyone, whenever we talk about these topics, we get them in and we see what they think.
Yes. I think that, I guess my perspective in general is I am pro free speech. Generally, people in today's society align that with, for some reason, a conservative viewpoint. But I actually believe that it's one of the tenets of being liberal. So
yeah,
a liberal.
It's part of classic liberalism.
Right.
Yeah, if you're a centre individual, a radical centrist, as Josh Sepps likes to call it, I think that you should want it to be available. And it's interesting, the people that always agree with that, I just always find myself agreeing with them the most.
But at the same time, I think that we should protect people from any type of violence that might be instilled against them based on
speech. Of course, yeah.
I think that's very important.
I think it's a no-brainer.
But as well, mental health as well. So there's certain things that might happen online that might be considered free speech, but it might affect someone's health or mental health, and I think that needs to be considered too.
Well, I guess it's, as we said before, it's very interesting to see what's happening with Instagram and how that, because Apple really pushed that movement of privacy and wellness amongst tech.
Yes.
So, and I feel like the Facebooks of the world are starting to realize that is a very valuable point of difference to have, and so if you can integrate that more,
it's vital.
It's going to be interesting to see what the impact is of this test. But one thing that we've sort of dodged around but didn't get to talk about so far is your movie,
Islam and the Future of Tolerance.
Exactly.
Yes.
Now, the genesis of the movie was you had Sam and Majid over here.
Yes, 2016.
They did the tour. Why create a movie about the book and their relationship?
Did you watch the movie?
Yeah.
Okay. The tour was really, really important. Religious violence is a topic that is very heavily spoken about. The rise of organizations like ISIS and the story of Majid's story and what he went through and radicalization.
Super fascinating.
Right.
Some of the early footage of him being in that like Egyptian jail and whatnot
That's right.
is so fascinating.
So, Majid, do you think your audience will know much about him?
I don't know. Like he's pretty big in the UK, but not as big here.
So he grew up in Essex.
Yeah.
Loved hip hop. He's like a brother to me. He's a very special individual. Ended up falling into, was a victim of racism, and ended up falling into an Islamic extremist group called Hizb ut-Tahrir. Ended up finding his way out to Egypt under the precedent of studying Arabic, and Hizb ut-Tahrir was banned in Egypt and found himself in an Egyptian prison at the age of 24.
That's right. And he was planning all sorts of things.
Well, they wanted a global caliphate. It wasn't violent, but they wanted a global caliphate.
Yeah.
So
he was an Islamist.
that's right. He was an Islamist.
Yeah.
He, after a few years in jail, came out of prison and founded the world's first de-radicalization organization called Quilliam.
That's right.
And that is incredible. And he is an incredible individual for doing so, and someone I really respect and look up to as someone that stood with courage and bravery when he was surrounded by people that agreed with him and that he influenced, and he could turn around and say, you know what, I was wrong. And I think that's a beautiful thing, and I try and live my life in the same way, in the sense that, if there's an opinion that I held that I find out was incorrect, or I can say, I stand corrected, I was wrong, and change my perspective. And I think that takes courage, and he did that. And so I really look up to him.
It's an amazing story. If you even just the story of Majid on its own,
yes,
what he's gone through in his life
His
and
book
what
Radical,
he's created
yes.
it's unbelievable.
Indeed. And so we made the film because it was a very important book that they'd written together, Islam and the Future of Tolerance, because it was a conversation between Sam Harris, of course, who's this incredible intellectual, atheist
thinker, philosopher.
And also just an incredible man, like very genuine, authentic, family-orientated, loving, gentle, generous human being, right? So anyway, they wrote this book together about a conversation about Islam, about Majid's come up, about, learning lessons. And Sam learnt lessons. Majid was able to teach him things and learn lessons. And they were able to have a conversation, again, coming from two different perspectives. A Muslim and an atheist having a conversation about Islam. And they wrote the book. We did the tour. It was very impactful. It was really important. And so we made the film. And it was such an honor for them to allow us to do that. I'd never made a film before, but they said, okay, Suzi, go off and do it. And they trusted me. And we brought on a director, Jay Shapiro, is very talented, and he directed the film. And we filmed in the US, filmed in the UK. It's a talking heads film. It's very Think Inc. Like it's about ideas. And it provides people with the skills to have an informed conversation about religious violence. And what we hope it does is empowers moderate Muslims and disempowers xenophobia. We want to disempower extremism.
It disempower the fringes of either side.
That's right, on either side, right?
Yeah.
So whether that's white extremism or Islamic extremism, we want to disempower that and empower people that are living, lives that are actually positive, whatever that they believe in, is fine.
I love it. I think it is, seriously. So I obviously listened to the audio book when it first came out. And then when you released the movie, Lauren and I were actually living here by then. We watched that movie. It was brilliant. And what I do now, because I have a lot of friends who probably sit politically left, and they always complain about, things that affect Muslims. And I often send them the link
Are they white?
to that movie. Yes, of course they are. And the thing is that I really understand this topic really well because my family is from the area. I grew up with Jews, Turks, Armenians. Like, I understand the religious angst that comes around in that part of the world. And I think movies like that are brilliant because what often happens around this conversation in the West is, oh, we went over there, we bombed people, no wonder they hate us, blah, blah, blah. Whereas there's actual fundamental issues that are wrong with, I would say, the political element of the religion that comes out through Islamism. And you can see that now in places like Turkey. Like, I've had so many arguments with my Turkish friends about what is going, like they basically
with the
have
new leadership.
Yeah, well,
Yes.
they basically have like a dictator at the end of the day, and he uses religion now because he's fallen out of favor with, like, for people who don't understand, Turkey's been a very moderate country.
That's right, after Ataturk.
Yeah. What do they call it? Kemalism. Kemalism is like the form of political movement that is just like there's no religion involved in politics. It's just democracy and that's it. But he's utilized this sort of stuff. So, yeah, we talk about that a lot.
Yes. And I think another element of, like, to go on from what you're speaking on is I think what we were trying to represent in the film that is that doesn't matter what culture it is, if there are social injustices occurring within the culture, we need to stand up and say that's wrong.
Yeah.
So if there is mistreatment of women, then we need to stand up and say that's wrong. It doesn't matter if you're black or white or Muslim or Jewish. If you see an injustice, you should stand up and say that's wrong. So I think that's something that we were trying to get out in the film and saying that, we should be critiquing any culture that displays social injustices or disempowerment of certain members of society, such as women.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think it's very valuable. I know you said you've got ideas around more movies.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
I'm intrigued to see where that goes. I'm realising we've just cracked over an hour and 20 minutes.
Have we?
Yeah, for an hour and 20. Now, I want to jump into some rapid fire questions for you. Rapid fire is the key here because some people, I ask these questions and what ends up happening is it turns into a 30-minute answer on each question.
Okay. I'll try my best.
Okay. First thing for you. What is your morning routine?
I'm not a big breakfast person.
Okay. If you do have breakfast, what do you have?
If I do have breakfast, toast.
Okay. Toast with what?
A muesli bar, a Vegemite.
Okay.
I'm not a big breakfast person. I will not usually eat till about 11, 12.
Yeah.
I like to drink water in the morning. I think that's good for the system.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a morning person in general. Trust me, I'm not a morning person. I'd rather stay up late than wake up early. So usually all it is getting out of bed, going, getting, a cup of tea, a glass of water, and doing my makeup and heading into the office. Okay. Or going into the study and working right away from the morning. I don't do much in the morning. You can ask me about my nighttime routine. That's a lot more involved.
So what is your evening routine?
Oh, well, like wind down.
Yeah.
Oh.
So how do you decompress?
Well, that's a really hard question for an entrepreneur. Like, I don't really have...
It doesn't happen.
I don't really have, like, work-life balance. I don't know if that exists. Like, I think work-life harmony maybe exists more than balance.
Yeah.
I mean, I love reading. I love listening to podcasts, audiobooks, and I always do that. I love watching. I watch a lot of YouTube and watch a lot of different videos on there. I think that's probably how I decompress the most. That's kind of always in the background. I'm constantly consuming information. Spending time with family. Family is very important to me.
Yeah.
And loved ones and friends. I think that's important. And not taking the time during that time to not be on socials, not be working. It's hard because my phone's always going off. But, even now I flip my phone over because I saw I was... So, taking the time to be present, I'm really working on that. I'd love to say meditation, but that's still something that I'm working on.
Do you have a day where you can take a day off, like a Sunday or something like that?
So by the end of last year, by about September, I was pretty burnt out. I had like millennial burnout.
Everyone keeps talking about this fucking phrase at the moment.
So I was pretty burnt out, and so I needed to take a break. So I traveled and I took about 2 weeks off, and that was the best thing. It was over Christmas, so I spent time with family and friends, went to the beach, enjoyed. And then I came back refreshed. I felt so much better when I came back. So now I try one day a week to do some fun things.
Okay.
My work is fun though. So it's really hard because I really enjoy doing it.
Yeah. I found that when I can get out, like I always don't do work on a Sunday. I just don't do a single thing.
Well, that's
good. It is so refreshing because I'm chomping at the bit to get back into work on Monday.
Well, maybe it's good advice.
Yeah, it's very, very useful. I've noticed that on Saturdays now I spend sort of half day doing work, half day sort of self-improvement related, whether it's gym, I don't know, errands, just something that is personal.
Gym is important to me.
Yeah.
I love the gym. You know how we talked about that dopamine? I get that after gym every time.
Yeah.
And so that's something 3-4 times a week at least. And running. I love kind of
Clears
walking
your head.
and running. I love it.
What's in your fridge at home?
Orange juice, vegetarian minced meat.
Okay.
Yogurt.
Of course.
Fruit.
What's your fruit of choice?
I love fruit.
Anything in particular?
My favorite fruit?
Yeah.
Maybe pineapples, mangoes.
Okay.
But you know what? I actually think it's underrated. You know, I love bananas.
Okay. Yeah, I fucking love bananas.
I actually think bananas is my favorite because I eat bananas so much that I think it's probably my favorite. But I would never say, oh, what's your favorite bananas? How boring.
Bananas easily my favorite.
No way.
Like
Do you admit that?
Yeah.
What?
Like a banana proteiny type shake
Delicious.
is the best fucking thing in the world.
Yum.
Bit of banana, blueberries, protein powder, some chocolate or like cocoa. Oh man.
Delicious.
So
I
good.
love that.
So damn good.
Yum.
All right. If you had to gift one book, just one, to the audience for Christmas this year, what would it be and why?
That is a really hard question. That is really hard. Because, what do they need to read now this year for Christmas? Is that what you asked?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So it needs to be something that is relevant to the now.
Okay.
So this sounds like a cop-out answer because I know I'm on tour with John, but Coddling of the American Mind is a very important book for the now. And we need to be listening, or we need to read that book in order to understand the basis of how we need to move forward with social media, with the way that children are raised. I think that's very important for the now. So I think I would have to choose that. I mean, I've got all-time classic favorites, authors and all that. But since you asked for one, I'll roll with that.
I think that's a very good choice.
Yes.
And I think that talk, which we will link, that original talk about the coddling of the American mind, I actually think now is in Washington. Is just unbelievably fascinating. It's the only time we've had data on the effects of social media and tech on kids.
Yes, exactly.
So I think it's very, very useful, particularly for parents that are listening right now.
That's right.
All right. Last question for you.
Oh, okay.
Best purchase under $200. Something that's had a lot of impact for you. And it could be super, super simple, like a chocolate bar or some AirPods.
AirPods are over $200, Jordan.
They're just over $200.
I love my AirPods and I love chocolate, but no. So if you're looking to purchase something under $200, I recommend a ticket to a Think Inc. event.
Yes.
No, right.
Do you see how I sort of laid you up there?
Something I use all the time that costs less than $200 is my Audible subscription.
I knew it. I knew you'd say that.
No way.
Yeah.
How did you know?
Because it was one of the things you mentioned earlier, and I know you love to read books.
Yes. I use that all the time.
It's so cheap. It's $10.
It's like $14 a month or something. And I mean, what happens is I stack up all my credits. Do you use Audible?
I've used it in the past.
Right.
I don't use it as much.
You know, every month you get a credit, a free credit. You're really paying for it. But, you get a credit every month. And I stack up my credits some months because I just can't get through my books or they're hard listens and so it's slower or I get distracted or I'm working. And then some months I'll just be smashing through books and I'll buy like 3 extra books. So I don't know. I don't think I use it properly, but I love my Audible subscription.
It's an amazing thing. We've had a lot of, including yourself, a lot of guests talk about listening to Audible while reading the book as a further way of ingraining that into their head. So
Right.
if you read it like 1.5 speed, it's sort of the right speed for most people.
That's interesting.
Um,
Do you watch Seinfeld?
Yeah, I've watched Seinfeld. Why?
Have you seen that episode of Seinfeld where George is reading a book, but he gets frustrated because he's reading it in his own head in his own voice? And so he gets the audiobook and then it's read in his own voice.
Why can't I remember that episode?
I don't know, but I'm going to find a clip and link you to it because it's hilarious.
It's so funny. Is that the reason why you have Stan?
Oh, for Seinfeld. That's the reason I got Stan was for Seinfeld. But now it's useful for heaps of stuff.
Because that was the legit reason we got it.
And I got Foxtel for Veep.
Ah, okay. We got it for Game of Thrones, but I chucked it after the end.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's just...
It's so expensive.
It's so expensive.
$25 a month.
Yeah.
The
only thing I was using it for was the AFL because my team, for whatever reason, keeps getting dicked with these games where it's only on Foxtel, it's not on free-to-air.
Right. I don't know anything about sport, but yeah, that sounds tough. It also has Curb Your Enthusiasm, and I'm a huge Larry David fan.
Yes. Well, look, Seinfeld, I remember Lauren and I watched the entirety of Seinfeld from start to finish in about 3 weeks.
Right, yeah.
It's a lot of episodes as well.
I bought the box set for my parents' anniversary one year for them, and then it was stayed in my room.
Do you remember, did you grow up as a kid and your parents would watch Seinfeld?
Yes.
Like, I'd come home and it'd be 7 p.m, The Simpsons had finished and Seinfeld was
absolutely. And I remember there would be things going on in the episodes as a child I didn't understand. You know?
You have no idea. It's like...
No idea.
Yeah.
You know, I remember asking my parents once if... it was like the episode with about being gay, and they're like, not that there's anything wrong with that. And I was like in front of one of my uncles that was not married, but not gay. And I was like,
no.
Is he gay? Like right in front of him. And like, oh,
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Oh, Jesus. Look, Suzi, we've just cracked on an hour and a half.
Fantastic. We could talk forever.
We could talk forever. It's been wonderful having you in. Where can people find you and where can they find Think Inc?
So thinkinc.org.au.
Okay.
SuziJamil.com. Feel free to reach out. You can contact me over email through the website.
Instagram,
Suzi Jamil.
Yeah.
It's pretty straightforward. Twitter, Suzi Jamil. Facebook, Suzi Jamil.
Think Inc's on Instagram, right?
Think Inc's on Instagram.
Yeah.
It's Think Inc.
we'll make sure we link all of it. But
it's pretty straightforward.
I'd suggest people go give you a follow. Encourage you to do more stories.
Thank you.
Behind the scenes.
Thank you.
All right, Suzi, thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Thank you for making it to the end. Before you run off, subscribe if you enjoyed this episode, or do leave us a rating. For Instagram, go follow us on @uncommon_podcast. For YouTube, search Uncommon Podcast, and don't forget to subscribe if you're watching this video. Also give us a like or leave a comment on what you thought about the episode. But until next time, thanks so much for listening.